Okay, Facebook, good morning. We are about to go live, do a little market review. I'm just setting up the screen here, so just bear with me 2 seconds while we get this all sorted. So we've got a few trades to review. We'll go and have a little look at the Nasdaq. So we'll go and do that, and a few of the other indices as well. So let's start. Let's start with the Nasdaq. So let's go and have a little look at this, because I want to review where we are, because on a previous market commentary I talked about this idea that the Nasdaq was diverging away from the other indices, and there was a lot of reports in various different publications and articles saying that the Nasdaq was diverging. So what you saw was the Nasdaq over the last few weeks. I said we go back probably 3 or 4 weeks. You can see the Nasdaq moving down here. Yet what you had on the S&P at a similar time was a slightly shorter move down, and the S&P was essentially heading up. Same with the Dow. So the Dow and the S&P had a little dip down, but have been pushing up, whereas the Nasdaq fell away a little bit further. Now, for me, from a technical point of view, the key thing with this was, rather than look at this and go, right, because of that, I'm going to short, or is this the start of a big move? Rather than try and predict anything, what I've been saying and what we've been working on with my students in the room is we've been looking and saying, well, hang on a minute. What is it about the Nasdaq from a pattern point of view that you can see that it maintained during this last big move up? Well, you can see that we made a trending move up, and what we did get was we got retests of the 21 moving average. But what we haven't had since you go back all the way to March, and this is what you're seeing on the Nasdaq. So what we had in March was a close below the 50 moving average, a retest as a 21 moving average, sorry. So a close below the 21. Then you got a retest of the 50, a close below that, and then price went lower. So for me, from a technical point of view, until at least one of those things happens on the Nasdaq, I am not even alerted to thinking anything different. So yes, we had this move up. You can see that there. We came down, we tested the 21, and then what I'm looking for here is to see whether or not we get a weekly candle close below the 21. Now, because of that, that doesn't necessarily mean I'm immediately going to go short or suddenly I've got a huge bearish view. But if we get a close below the 21, then that's the first time that would have happened since back here. So that would essentially set me up with almost a warning signal that we might see some further downside. So as you see, we came down, tested, we went lower, and this is key. We went lower, we went below the 21, but we closed above it. Yes, we closed down, but we closed above it. Then here, following week, same thing, closed above it. Same thing here. So as yet, what we haven't had is a close below the 21. So let's say, for example, we got it either this week or next week. That, as I've said, wouldn't mean I'd suddenly short, but what I would then look for is for price to take out these recent lows. If price took out these recent lows, then I would be looking for price to get down and then retest the 50, just like we had here back in March of last year. If that happens, then I'd look for the same thing, look for a close below there. So it might be that we have short trades in this gap here on lower time frames. It doesn't mean I wouldn't take short trades, but in terms of having a big bearish view, well, at the moment, price, yes, for a short period of time was diverging against the other indices, but at this point, there's nothing to suggest anything different or anything to alert me. So at the moment, I'm watching it, but I'm not making any decisions. I'm not changing my view, because at the moment, price is still staying closed above that 21 moving average. So at the moment, if you look, the pattern isn't that different to what we've seen a couple of times last year. So for me, if we retest these highs, then I would expect a move potentially higher up, but we'll watch and see. So at the moment with the Nasdaq, nothing for me to do, nothing for me to change. In fact, some of our guys are actually looking at long trades. If we go down to the daily chart, what you'll see here is what they're looking for is price to come up, break these highs. We get rid of that trend line because it's been broken, break these highs, and then they would look for short trades back up to the high, long trades back up to the highs. But at this point here, they're doing nothing. So at the moment, it's caught in what we would call a neutral phase. Yes, we've broken the shorter term trend line with a new low. We've got a lower high, but we're right slap bang on that daily 50. So at the moment, this is a neutral zone. Short term, if we take these lows out, look for a retest of these lows. If we take these lows out, look down towards where the weekly 50 is. Take these highs out, some of our traders will have long opportunities back up to these highs. Me personally, I want price to make new highs and pull back before I would look at longs. So yeah, at the moment, fairly neutral short term, and still medium term for me, a bullish scenario until we see a different behavior around this 21 moving average. Quick look at the Dow and the S&P. As you can see here on the weekly, they've been moving up a lot more. We've got potential long trades if price makes a decent move back down into this area here, and that's more on the Dow than the S&P. If I show the S&P did make a new high, but in a scenario like that, we'd rather look at that and say, well, yes, technically that is a new high, but it's only a marginal new high. To me, that's more of a double top. So a pullback in that scenario is not something we'd look for. We'd want a stronger, higher high for us to consider a long trade back at these levels. So the Dow out of the two has got that stronger, higher high, and that pullback to that level would potentially trigger a trade for our with the trend traders. Quick look at oil. Had a nice trade on oil this week. Had a lovely reversal off of these highs. I'll show you that in a second. There you can see we were looking for price to get into this level. You've heard me talk about this before. So we had a nice reversal set up, not immediately off the level. Some of our guys trade very aggressively straight off the level, something they've tested, but we were looking for price to move just slightly lower. We have a 4-hour entry on this one in this area here, and you can see that rolled down for a nice trade. You'll see in there the oil trade down at the bottom. So lovely risk to reward on that. Nice 3-to-1. Where do I see oil going from here? If we look at the daily chart for me, well, you can see, look, we got that similar scenario that I was talking about with the Nasdaq. Closed below the 21. You can see that there. We actually closed below the 21 on that day, came down to the 50. We've come up, had another close. So for me, I would be looking at with further moves down, a move down towards this low here. That would be more in line with the weekly 200. You'll see this here. So I'd be looking, sorry, not the weekly, the weekly 200, which comes in about this level, which is in line with the weekly 21. So this area here, if we make further moves down, I'll be looking here. So we've got these previous lows, and we've got the weekly 21 that you can see there. And then if I just pop that on there, it's a little zone where the weekly 200 is as well. Upside on oil, it would have to do a bit of work from here, because you can see, look, the 21 moving average is turning. For me, oil would have to be all the way up here and create new highs. So it would have a fair bit of work to do. So at the moment, it's showing a little bit more short opportunities for us. And then there's also a short opportunity in this zone here for our trend line break traders. And that's one of the setups that I take. So I'd be looking for a short in this area here for a retest of these lows. All right, and then, which is what I took on Aussie US dollar and New Zealand dollar, which I closed out of yesterday and the previous day. You'll see that there. There's Aussie and New Zealand dollar there. So I'll show you those in a second. So this pattern is where what you're looking for is to essentially the trend line to be broken, then a move back into a zone. You can see that move there on Aussie New Zealand dollar, and the same on New Zealand dollar, US dollar. That's actually rolled over quite nicely, and I've got one other position on those. So yeah, so oil for me, we're looking for a little bit of a move back up into this zone and then a potential short. Let's go and have a little look at euro. Euro's rolled over quite nicely. We had our trade in this zone. We've come up, didn't get a move back enough for us to warrant another trade, but you can see here we've just taken out these recent lows. So again, if I go up to the weekly chart on oil, you can see, look, we got a test of the 50, no change. Test of the 50, test of the 21, no change. Price then closed below the 21 and broke that. So in that scenario, what I'm now looking for is, as I've talked about on the Nasdaq, is a retest of the 50 and then see how price reacts down there. There's a little area of support, it's a little bit lower. So now that's what I'm looking for. So in terms of possible trades on euro, I'd be looking to establish shorts between that area and where the 21, where the weekly 50 is. There's not a lot of room. So the breakout traders might have got a little move here. It'll be highly unlikely that we'd get that. We need to go lower on that for short. So the aggressive traders might have a trade here. But for me, I would need price to get down to that weekly 50 and see what it would do there. If it wants to go lower, then we've got potential short opportunities in this window here. So that's euro. Let's have a quick look at pound US dollar, because pound US dollar, you can see, is in this little window. It's in this little window of clean air, almost got up to these highs. It's sat in this little area here. Now, for some traders, the fact that it got this close to the resistance would have meant they said no to any further momentum trades in this direction. But for some traders, the fact that there was that little area of clean air means they would consider it. So in this scenario, price has rolled over. So some guys would have had a losing trade in this scenario. Some, by not trading at that level, would have meant they missed a losing trade. But again, that's dependent on your discretion, because these are scenarios where you have to decide, is that too close to the level to warrant a trade, or are you happy that you would take another with the trend move? Because at some point, regardless of whether there's support or resistance in the way, with the trend moves will end. Now for us, the fact that we've come down, retested the trend line, lower high, and now that we've got price moving into a lower low position, same here as oil, what we'd be looking for is price to move into this zone here, and then we would look for short trades off the back of that. So we have got quite a few potential opportunities at the moment. I've got about 6 or 7 that I'm looking at, and again, they may or may not play out, but we'll see how that goes. So that is it for me now. There is no Finance Friday this week. We'll be doing a Finance Friday the following week, and I'll let you know on email all about that. So I hope you guys found that useful. It's great to catch up. I will be in touch a bit more. We've been really busy with our second kickstart, our second 28-day kickstart of the year. So be very focused on helping the 32 guys that have been on that. But after that, I will be getting back and getting a lot more free content out to you. So I'll be in touch on a much more regular basis. I will try and get a video out tomorrow morning because I've got a really interesting subject that I want to go through with you all. So trade safe, catch up with you soon, and I'll see you later this week, and if not, early next.